Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Chase.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And Joel, as I was thinking about today's topic, I was kind of reflecting on the fact that we live in an era. So, I mean, it's the 21st century, right? This is the internet era. This is the era of the massive information age. And in this time period, there are more and more people who are either self-proclaimed experts or they are actual experts, but people in large numbers are learning about all the different ways that dynamically people can interact with each other, whether it be on a business level, a relationship level, whatever it might be. So we've gotten, for instance, a terminology about your tribe. Like if you're trying to market your business, you want to find your tribe that would be appropriate for your business. Or if you're trying to get your own first job and you want to find the tribe that matches what it is for the kind of passion you're bringing or the kind of work that you want to be doing. Or even if it's just, who you're going to hang out with or what are you going to do to advance your career, or maybe you want to start a business, or, I mean, there's a whole range of things where the popular idea is, well, you got to find who your tribe is. And a couple interesting things go along with that. First of all, no one ever actually talks about how you find the tribe. And second of all, no one really explains what to do with the tribe you already had. So I figured we should probably delve into that a little bit to figure out, well, what do you do? I mean, we have to deal with the real world part, right? While we're dealing with this whole tribal thing. So
and
that's
and
what
also
I think.
and I love the topic because it also delves into other concepts. There's like with anything, it's perspective based and whether something's good or bad. But there's a lot of evil that finds their tribe. That used to not find their tribe because of social media. There's, I believe the proliferation, I can't say the word right now, but
Proliferation.
thank you, of pedophiles when they had the internet, that they're able to find each other, that they weren't able to find each other, Nazis and, the extremists. And, I think that, a lot of people are finding their tribe in a positive way, but there's also a lot of people finding their tribe in a negative way. Again, it's a yin and yang. There's a positive and negative to most things, but for the sake of our discussion, starting out at least, the importance of finding your tribe. How do you do that? I actually posted on Facebook today one of my favorite quotes, which, it sounds weird at first, but I've told you this several times. I always strive to be the poorest, the weakest, and, the dumbest in the room.
I love that.
Yeah. And I love my tribe to be smarter, richer, and stronger than me. And if you keep finding those tribe members, you eventually get to the point where you run out of rooms. There's just no, there's very few rooms that I can be all three anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yes.
And that's sort of the point of a tribe. A tribe can elevate or it can lower. It can pull you down. And so finding the tribe, and also when it's necessary, great points you made in the beginning. What do you do with that tribe that already exists? Is it, especially if it's not necessarily a positive tribe?
Or at least conducive to what you're doing anyway. That's, I mean, fitting what your goals is, your models, yes, and your all that kind of thing.
What you're striving for. And one of the great examples of that, I do a lot of work in addiction, as you know, and a lot of times addicts live and or not necessarily live, they're always around other addicts. They use together. They buy together, they do all these things together. And then when one wants to get recovery, they try to break away from that tribe. One of the biggest problems is that tribe pulls them back because it just the lure of that. I have a sad story. I worked with this man, 2017. I really liked this guy. He's a really good guy. Wanted to get off heroin really bad. Hard worker, but he was just stuck on heroin. So he goes away to treatment. He does well. And I was encouraging him to not go. He lived in a neighborhood where everybody around him, from his perspective, I'm sure not everyone, but everyone was using drugs and heroin and opiates, everyone. And it was a, very dangerous part of town. And I begged him to try to find alternative living arrangements.
Yeah.
And he said, look, that's where my family is. I don't have the money to move forward. I gotta be strong. And he had a month and a half of solid recovery. when he got out of when he left the treatment center, and I shook his hand and I said, I want to see you next week, and I need you to understand that environment. You're going back to a dangerous environment. I never saw him again,
Oh,
and that's a place where his tribe, he was so enmeshed with that, it just pulled him back down. And
mm,
the horrors of that are, I'll never forget that. Great guy. I just really liked his energy. He was always so nice to me, and we came from very different backgrounds. But and I had him where we needed him, and then he went back to his tribe. So
yeah.
our job is to how to appropriately leave tribes that aren't good for us. And then secondarily, how do I attract, develop, and continue to grow my tribe in the direction that I want to use it for my benefit? That's the $1 million answer question here.
And long before this whole conversation about tribes entered popular parlance, back when I was in my 20s, I was also leaving substances behind. And I somehow I didn't have a coach or a therapist or anything like that. I was just kind of going on my own sense of it. But I realized I needed to leave that tribe behind that I was in. And I literally cut myself off from them.
Yes.
But in the process of cutting myself off, I was left with no tribe. I was tribeless. I had no connections other than my immediate family. And it was not good. It led to a lot of different kinds of problems over the next 10 to 15 years, something like that. So it's a really, and I didn't know that was important at the time. I want to emphasize that part. I mean, I thought all I really had to do was separate from that, what we now call a tribe, from the people who I used to associate with, who were into that culture, and that everything would be okay. I didn't realize I needed to replace it with something else.
Yes. And that's the, we're as human beings, we are meant to belong. We are, we are meant to be connected. Most people who claim they like to be isolated really don't. It's just they feel safer isolated, usually because of events of their life. But the concept of there's protection in a tribe, there's commonality. A tribe lifts you up. One of the biggest indicators in people 65 and over, depending on estimating their lifespan, who is in their tribe? Those are my words. Who are their support system? Are they married? Do they have kids? Do they have activities? That's the biggest indicator, because when you're retired and you don't have anybody and you're sitting there watching The Price is Right all day and watching the negative news and all that, you become very your mentality just sort of mood decreases and your life expectancy shortens greatly.
It does. Yes.
Yeah, and there's a lot of studies that really support that. And when I've had to move, probably I'm trying to think 4 or 5 times in my lifetime where I just had to leave and go to a new area. And one of the blessings that now that I understand is, I've been I have always been, and I remain an advocate of intense exercise. I'm in the gym every day. So I knew my tribe, no matter what city I went to, my tribe was at that gym.
Yeah.
And so I would just join a gym, and within, you're in a gym for a few weeks, you start recognizing people, they start talking, and then my tribe slowly develops around that. And then, when I came to Virginia, I went to work at an addiction treatment center, and then so I met people at the gym, and I started meeting some great people that I was working with, some other therapists, some just different people, and so I quickly developed my tribe. And I've been in Virginia now since 2008, I believe, and this tribe is amazing. They're all over the country now, and it's grown, and I feel very supported. I have a lot of like-minded people. And I support them. They support me. It's just an amazing feeling to have that. And I can't imagine a world. One of the things that I've always been able to create a tribe. And I've always told you, I like to be around people that push me, or they pull me with them. I'm fascinated by driven people. I'm fascinated by positive people. And our friend, Dr. Ken Marks, will be on the show in a couple of weeks, I think.
Next week, I think.
Next week, great. And I met him at Williamsville Wellness, and we quickly became tribe members. And to this day, we've lived apart now, worked apart for a long time, but we still remain very close. He knows we don't talk every week, but the good news about a tribe is they're always there. You don't have to constantly be interacting with them, but if you need them, they're there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that personally from personal experience. I had the breakup of my marriage last October, and you were among that tribe that I reached out to. And boy, was I glad to have that tribe. I mean, that really got me through the worst time of my life. So that was vital. It also revealed to me, and it was something actually that my ex had complained about me. She complained I didn't have enough local friends. Almost all my friends were online. People like you that I met, through doing the podcast for the most part, but also through other sources as well. And it was a valid point I'm not sure why it had anything to do with our relationship, but nevertheless, it was a valid point. I needed to kind of get into that some more. And as soon as the breakup happened, of course, when you go through something like that, your mind is racing and you're trying to figure out how can you reestablish some level of equilibrium because your entire equilibrium has been knocked completely off the table. One of the first things I went to was, I used to love dancing. And so I knew that was something, it wasn't even a decision. It was driven need. I needed to get back into dancing. It almost didn't even matter whether I liked it. Fortunately, I do like it. But I mean, it almost didn't matter just because I needed to, it was like there was this gaping hole that was now, I was very highly aware of, intensely aware of, and I needed to fill that hole as soon as I could. So I started getting out and taking classes and going to dances and all that kind of thing. And like you said, it takes time. I mean, I remember fairly vividly many of the people who were in those first dance classes, and I didn't know any of them. They didn't know me. It all felt kind of, stiff, kind of formal and uncomfortable and so forth. And I was just reflecting as you were talking just now. I had a class on Monday with many of those same people. I mean, there's always a change in who the people are, but many of the same people. And we're like close buddies, and we're joking and we're laughing and we're sharing stories and all this. I didn't even know these people a year ago. I didn't know any of them. Yes. But because I got out there and made those kinds of connections, I started building my local tribe. And it really brought home for me just, first of all, how important it is. And second of all, it's actually not all that difficult. It isn't so much a matter of difficulty. It's actually more about getting out there, getting yourself out there, and then being patient with it and just letting the process play out. Because the one thing that is very easy to do is to get to the place of saying, I got to make friends now. I got to start building connections now. And you'll just drive yourself crazy doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and you organically, when you put it's really one of the most simple formulas to develop your tribe. Go to what you love and then attract the people that are there. It's just not rocket science here. You know what I'm saying? Like you went to dancing and you put out the energy, you attracted the people. Your tribe was already there. You just went to where they were. You instinctively knew where they were. Yeah. And they're always supportive. I think I've shared on the show and a lot of people find this very odd. But the morning that I found out at 6 a.m., my son had died the night before. At 9 a.m., I was at the gym because that's where my tribe was. That's what I needed. I spent most of the day there. And I just felt that that's where I needed to be. My tribe I didn't discuss it. I talked to one person about it, worked out. But I just needed to be there. I just needed to feel it. And, so by developing a tribe, in a tribe, it could be various things. I have 11-year-olds that are in my tribe. I have 90-year-olds that are in my tribe. I track the weirdest, coolest people on the planet. I mean, heck, you're my friend. And, within that, I enjoy, it isn't just one group of people that I enjoy. I like the people that there's certain energies that, I attract and, that I seek. And so really when you develop your tribe, you can instinctively know. I mean, and some people, they may not fit. They may not necessarily do. So people may fall off as you go, and that's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's, the idea that people grow apart. I have people that I'm really close with, and then, things eventually fall off, but if they needed me, I'd still be there. It's just one of those things you don't have to, the tribe's a lifetime a lot of times. And it's just an amazing thing to develop. Not that hard to do. But also, again, pruning the ones that aren't there where you need to be. I've had over the years some friends that sort of did things, differently, and I didn't really like. For me, when I've evolved in my life, if there were people that were sort of negative or, just not really, had a very negative attitude and always talking and complaining, those people don't last in my tribe very long. And, not because they're certainly entitled to be what they want to be and do what they want to do, but I cannot be around that energy. I can't. So my tribe can't include those. So I have to exit them from my tribe.
Yeah.
And
right.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, that's basically being selective about what's important to you. And
Yes.
that's an essential element of being alive. By the way, Barbie in the live stream posted pickleball players make a great tribe. So there's another example of it right there.
Yes. Yeah. That ridiculous sport of pickleball. Absolutely. That's great for tribe building. I mean, literally.
And that thing's growing like crazy. I mean, I hadn't even heard of pickleball a year ago. It's like everybody's playing pickleball now.
Yeah. And the old people are crushing everybody at it. It's the old people dominating it. I mean, one of my colleagues, one of my clients one day, I said, what are you doing? He said, I want to go play pickleball with my mom and some other old people. And I go, oh, is that fair? And they go, no, it's not. They kick my ass every time. I mean, so it's, so it is, but Barbie made a great point. There are tons, there's fishing clubs, there's whatever you're into. That's what I love about, we can talk about the negative stuff in the world today, but one thing that brings, Meetup has a thing online. You have this Meetup thing where you're able to, look up different meetings or clubs or whatever, and there's all these things. So you can go there and find your tribe. And that's what I love about things. There's limitless things. It could be, just the most narrow of interest, whatever, you can go find that. A lot of young people and are into anime comics. I'm not really familiar with much of those, but a lot of my clients are. And they've always been sort of historically this isolated group of people, but now their online presence, they have these big anime conventions and these Comic-Cons. They're massive, and thousands of people come from all over the country, and they dress up in these costumes that some people think it's ridiculous. I think it's amazing that they have found their people. And I have a doctor friend who I can't imagine how, I don't have a number, but he dresses in Star Trek thing and goes to these Comic-Con things. His uniform and his equipment stuff, multiple thousands, if not 100,000. It's in the upper. Yeah, wow. All in. That's his thing. And he's got his tribe. And he waves he flies in front of his house, the United Federation of Planets flag.
I love it.
Yeah. He is into it. He speaks fluent Klingon, literally a made up language that he knows the entire language. And he's a brilliant neurosurgeon on top of that. So
that is fabulous.
It's amazing. So that's the beauty of tribes. And we live in a time, again, I like to look at the positive ones. We live in a time where you can find your tribe easier than ever right now.
Yes.
The hard part is for some people is you got to get up and go. You at some point there's an effort. You need to make an effort to go do that. A lot of people think the tribe is often going to come to you. I'm not saying that couldn't take place. But most of the time, you need to get out and make an effort to go to and find and collect your tribe.
And speaking as one who had a great deal of trouble with that, of course, I was doing it pre-internet, so I didn't have that internet advantage. I wonder what would have happened if I had that. That's an interesting speculation. But I didn't have that. And I know that for myself, if I were to kind of analyze what it would have taken and what was holding me back was I didn't know what they were. I couldn't figure out what my tribe was. I didn't have any sense of what my passion was. And I wasn't allowing myself to kind of explore that question in any way, because then I might actually find out. And once you find out, now all of a sudden you just eliminated an excuse.
Yes. Well, exactly. And that's to me, like my law of attraction tribe, one of the things that I found, when I realized, when I first started in my private practice, and I had to be very careful with my law of attraction talk. I didn't want to run people off. People are saying you're crazy. I would incorporate the concepts and not name them. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, I like that idea.
Right.
But as time went on and I became, developed a voice and whatever, I unabashedly discuss my law of attraction beliefs. It is my fundamental belief system. And I have no problem sharing that. I actually have started getting, been happening over the last several years. I'm getting clients that just want to do law of attraction coaching. That's it. And
Wow.
that was something that I would always use the law of attraction, but I very seldom had somebody come to me with that. So my law of attraction crowd, where you're able to find likeness in that. And once I know who you are, then all I have to do is use the law of attraction scale. Are you a secret person?
Mm-hmm.
Are you a Abraham Hicks person?
Mm-hmm.
Are you Seth Speaks? I mean, somewhere on that scale,
Yeah, right. Neville Goddard, whatever. Yeah.
Neville Goddard, all that stuff. And so I can, when I ask you about not you, but people about their understanding of law of attraction, who they're into, I can tell you where they're at and what they think. And that's cool.
That is cool.
If somebody tells me Mike Dooley introduced them to the law of attraction, I know their whole belief system. I know what works.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really fabulous. In fact, I'm thinking back now. I started the podcast. Actually, the 11th anniversary is next week. It's going to be on the day that Ken joins us. That's going to be the 11th anniversary of the show. But 11 years ago, in 2012, I started the show. I interviewed you. You were my 12th episode. So I think I interviewed you in December of 2012. My third episode was my first interview. My first two was with my wife and then also with my brother and my sister-in-law. And then the third episode, I had my first interview, and she used a word I never heard before. That word was woo-woo. And she uses it in the middle of the podcast, and I'm sitting here thinking, I have no idea what that means. But I have to sound somewhat knowledgeable, so I kind of played along like I knew what it was, and I had to ask later on, like, what the hell is woo-woo?
Yes.
But I also learned how there was anyway, a kind of a stereotype against it. There was a sort of an energetic rejection of it. Well, if it's too woo-woo, we can't really bring it up in light conversation and that kind of thing.
Sure.
And here we are 11 years later. I mean, I'm getting guests now coming from very standard, career paths and so forth coming in talking about woo-woo. And I'm like, putting my hand over my head and saying, what happened? This thing it used to be like this thing that you had to avoid. Now everybody's talking woo-woo. What's going on?
Which I love, because the evolution of it and people become emboldened. And when I first did this, I had most of my friends growing up in the town I grew up in were very standard Southern Baptist Christians. And this stuff is not good to them a lot of times. And so I had to walk around that a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And then, and I was worried about who would think what or whatever. And then, and also society has changed and there's more acceptance of different beliefs, but also as my career has advanced and become who I am, I no longer worry anything about what people think. That's if I have a waiting list. If you're offended by my law of attraction, thank you for your time. I'll get the next person, so it's okay. Next. And, but it's finding my tribe and that reinforces, like when you and I talk, I was still new in that. Ken, again, Dr. Ken, who's joining us next week, was instrumental in introducing me to the law of attraction. And you and I started talking about it. So I was in my infancy when we were talking. So I was still just a little above the secret at that point. So, using our scale there, and I was fascinated by it. And some of it was, I'd be like, oh, that might be a little much, but I listened to it all. And then when I really got around to it, okay, I get this now. And so my tribe supports that. And I have people that are, what I love is there's people that don't necessarily agree with me, but they accept my belief system for me, which is all I ever want.
Yeah.
there's people in my tribe that don't take it as far as I do, but accept that's me as a whole person, and nobody's critical of that.
Yeah. And that's ideal. That's absolutely
Yes.
fabulous.
Yes.
I think it's actually the best possible world right there, because I would say it's even better than having people who have the same fundamental belief. And I say that because we learn so much more from those who have different perspectives from us. So to have so many of those people in your circle, in your tribe, who respect you enough that, okay, well, Joel's a little bit out there, but I can handle that. That's fabulous. That means you're getting the best possible combination going on there.
Yes. And equal to that, while they may believe stuff that I don't believe, I'm not asking somebody to change their beliefs because I believe different. We're accepting, and that's the model of how it should be. So your tribe, could be, and actually a healthy tribe does have varying opinions and beliefs. You want commonalities, even within the weightlifting community, there's people believe in doing it this way, or people believe in doing it that way. And, people think CrossFit is silly. People think powerlifting is silly, within the community. And I'm just accepting the community as a whole. It's all about self-improvement. It's all about getting stronger. Whatever pathway you choose to do is great. I'm not opposed to that. And, and that's the beauty of what we got going here. So,
by the way, you said something earlier I just wanted to refer to. You mentioned how people who are in your tribe, I think the two words that you used to describe it were weird and cool. And I just wanted to say that as a member of your tribe, I'm really, really proud that you found a way to include weird and cool in the same sentence to describe me. So thank you for that. That was really great.
and you of all people understand weird is a compliment from me.
It is.
That's not a slight. In fact, I hope, I'm not going to have a tombstone, but if I did, I hope weird would be the first word. So
I actually don't trust somebody who's not weird. If you don't have a weirdness about you, like, I'm looking askance at you. Like, okay, where's the other shoe that's about to drop?
One of my favorite stories, one of my younger clients that I'm very close with now, he's 20 something now, but back then, so he used to tell his friends, like, hey, my life coach is pretty cool, and so this one other kid came to see me and that he referred, and he went back and he said, Joel's a little weird. And my client that referred to him, no, he's a lot weird. He said, he's not offended if you were to call him weird. Trust me, he doesn't care. So, but one of the things that I work with a lot of young people is own your weird. We all have it. So that's the thing it's when you try to conform to the norms of everyone else and you hide your weird. That's the stuff that makes me tick is to some people just weird, and accept that. It's okay. Weird and cool they're synonymous with me. There's no one in my tribe that I would not describe as weird. And I mean that with the greatest, utmost respect.
I like that. I like that a lot. I'll even take that a step further and say that when you look at members of your own tribe, the ones that you like having in there and the ones you're not so happy about and everybody in between, if you're looking at each one of them and seeing them in a way that is uncomfortable to you, that's actually a good thing.
Yes. It's
probably the hardest part to kind of wrap your head around when you're dealing with your own tribe. But and I'm going to actually tie this into a rather challenging and complex issue, which will probably take up the rest of the show. But you made a reference earlier to that very sad story of the client who was enmeshed in the drug culture of his neighborhood and really couldn't get out of that tribe, so to speak. Well, people are born into tribes too. We're born into families. I mean, you have loads of experience with people who have been born into families where the families were so dysfunctional that the kids had to be taken away, and that there was like this massive disruption. And in many cases, the kids end up really suffering. You've had to deal with the worst cases and help them out to the best you can, which has been pretty darn good. But nevertheless, there are many, many people who deal with tribe members that they really can't get away from. I mean, they can, but in many cases, it's very difficult to do, seemingly impossible. Yes. And when you're faced with that, the idea of trying to reshape your tribe can be challenging, bordering on devastating, because you have that blood connection. How the heck do you deal with that blood connection? So I kind of wanted to go down that road a bit to, first of all, talk about how important it is to really go find your own tribe, the ones that you want to be in your tribe. But also, we need a strategy. How do we deal with those tribe members we really don't want, but we can't really get rid of them without, short of disowning a member of the family?
That's always a slippery slope. And there's our scenarios, especially with younger people who are living in dysfunctional situations, that don't get taken out of that system. They're not that dysfunctional, but they're still unhealthy. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of remedy for them. They have to sort of accept, this is my tribe for now. And there's not, if you're 13 and you're in an unhealthy environment, again, but not qualifying to have you removed from the home, you don't have a lot of options at 13 except to deal with what you got.
Right.
So there are those scenarios there that you can't, there's not a logical way out. As you get older, and you're able to trust that concept that, wait a minute, my tribe is, I get to choose who that is. I have members of my family that, I grew up with a lot of addiction, a lot of mental illness, and, family was allegedly really important. That was the message I was getting. And you always stood by your family, and you didn't share family secrets. And first of all, it was like, okay, you ignore the dysfunction and you act like it didn't happen. So when your grandfather gets drunk and threatens to kill you on Thursday, you go to Sunday dinner and just smile like it never happened. That was awesome. That was what you expected to do. And then when you turn older, what I did, and realized, I'm not going to eat Sunday dinner with your crazy ass when you threaten to kill me on Thursday. Just not doing it. Not moving forward. And then that created the whole disruption. Then the uncles are calling going, why would you tell your grandfather, you made him drink tonight? And I go, really? Because I think he was doing a pretty good job without me involved, but they were always like, you can't upset him. I go, no, we got to stop with that. And I cut my grandfather out of my life, because I just realized how dysfunctional it was. And, he was just a horrible, horrible alcoholic that never had the courage to get help, and he ended up killing himself. And, it's one of those things that's sad, but at some point you're like, wow, so I had to separate from that tribe, that portion of the tribe. And it's hard. I mean, it really is, especially when your narrative is your family first. You never move on from your family, and it's a conflicting message to many people.
Oh, very conflicting is putting it generously. I mean, it is a clashing message.
Yes.
It really is. Now, but you also made reference to that 13-year-old who doesn't have a whole lot of options going on. And it also brought to mind, we actually have listeners around the world. I remember at one point, and for all I know, she still listens, we had a listener from a Middle Eastern country who basically felt trapped in her own home. And literally there seemed to be nothing that she could do. She would contact me and ask for advice. How can I attract the kind of life I want? I'd do my best to give her basic LOA theory to help her get to where she wanted to go. But bottom line was she was facing a really rough situation where she literally could not physically leave without putting her life at stake.
Yes.
And that's a scary thing to do. What do you do if you're in that situation? How can you survive that?
Yeah, those are the ones where I'll use a 13-year-old, for example, because I've experience with that.
Okay.
The lady, I hope she's okay. I hope she's listening. I don't really have a lot of direct experience with that. That's a terrible situation to be in. The 13, and I've talked to kids that, you start creating a sub tribe. You can start building a tribe off to the side, so to speak. Surround yourself with the right people. You're building that tribe, and then eventually, there was one kid I worked with a long time ago, and he was a friend of one of my clients, and so he came to a session with one of my client brought him to a session, and his family would never have paid for him to see me. So they were talking, and he described a very dysfunctional situation, alcoholic father, abusive mother, but yet nothing to escape. It's not enough to get him out of there. So it just, he was there. So we started talking about, look, you're where you're at. So he decided to start playing sports. And the reason he did that, he kept him out of the house more. After school, he had practice, his games, and then on the weekends he would he got on a travel team with this friend that I was saying they would travel. So he basically reduced the amount of time in the house, and he kept developing a better and better tribe. And so he was limited. He limited through, they didn't know what he was doing, but he just worked hard to not be in the house. He did his homework at his friend's house, and then when he got 16 or 17, he was thriving and doing really well, and now he had some courage. The family that the client my client he got very close to that family, and he went to talk to them about it. And they said, we can't take you without your parents' permission, but if they will sign over a paper to let us, you be here and it's legal, you're welcome to live with us. And he had the courage. He went and talked to his parents, and they said, absolutely not. We're screaming and all this other stuff. And he said, okay. For some reason, his dad had a moment of clarity, and he said, we've been terrible parents. We've been terrible parents.
Wow.
And he goes, I'm going to sign it. I want you to be there. I'm here. We're going to pay them some money to help offset this. And if you ever want to come back, but maybe we can make this up to you. And it ended up beginning a healing process. He did live with that family. But he also improved his relationship with his other family. They started realizing it. So he fixed his tribe by getting a new tribe in a sense, and he helped fix his tribe. And he's a grown man now. I've sort of lost track of everybody, but everybody's doing fantastic. The last I heard, and so he developed it but he had to accept, I can't do it, but he worked around it where he played every sport, and they ended up being exceptional at baseball. He ended up getting a college scholarship for baseball. So all of it sort of worked out really, really well.
I love that. I love that story for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is that it is a great law of attraction story.
Yes.
In LOA theory, we talk a lot about vibration, right? What's the vibration of your thoughts, your feelings, and so forth? And if they're high vibration, then they're the so-called good feelings. If they're low vibration, they're the so-called bad feelings, and so on and so forth. There's also the element of vibration impacting other people. Yes. So, for instance, if I'm vibrating at a certain level because I'm focusing on something consistently, that vibration does have an impact on people in my immediate vicinity, people who I have regular contact with. And it has impact in ways that I don't necessarily see. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. A lot of the time it's going to impact them in ways that they don't even know about. I mean, it can actually go kind of under the table where nobody knows it's going on, but it's going on, and then it has this unexpected side effect that comes out of it.
Yes.
Now in the case of your client there, it was a much more direct, vibrational impact. It was pretty obvious that the shift of going to that other family positively affected his own family. I mean, that's the best possible, vibrational impact you could ask for. But it can work either way, really. And that's one of the reasons I bring it up. I mean, literally what we give our attention to, we get more of. Whether we're giving our attention to the good stuff, the bad stuff, whichever, we're going to get more of it. He gave his attention through this rather long, drawn-out process to this other family that gave him a better experience. And that led to better results. Now, if he had been like the other client who just simply went back to the old tribe and got, re-involved in the drugs and alcohol and so forth, that would have had the other kind of vibrational impact. And it did have the other kind of vibrational impact because you basically lost a friend that way. So it can work either way. I bring this up to remind us that when it comes to finding our tribe, connecting with our tribe, dealing with tribe members we don't enjoy, don't feel good about, that whole picture, our vibration is what we set just by what we're thinking about, what we're feeling about, what we're giving our attention to. So literally how we give our attention within that context of what that tribe is, what it's going to look like and so forth, it determines the tribe just because we're giving attention to it.
Yes. And that, And I love the point you made, and as this story was unfolding, as this young man, when he talked to me about it, he said, what would happen if I went to my parents and asked if I could just live there, since I'm basically doing that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a good environment for me. And, to be honest with you, I never considered the fact that I thought it was going to, I think maybe the parents would have said, okay, whatever, just get out of here, whatever. But I didn't even filter in that the dad that might have been what the dad needed to see, that my own son, who we've been horrible parents to, decided he attracted another family and was leaving our family, was a catalyst to them to get their life together and improve it. I didn't even see that coming. So that was like, wow, that was a twist. But it was because he wasn't focusing on the negative of his family. He was focusing on the positive of this other family and what they brought to the table. And everybody benefited in the end by the move.
Yeah. And that we often call that the ripple effect.
Yes.
We put out a vibrational impact in our own lives, and then it ripples over to someone else's life, and they have a similar kind of vibrational experience.
Absolutely, which is amazing to me, and it's the unintended. We set a direction. We get we seek our tribe. We do that, but some of the ripple effect that comes from that is amazing when you look at the people that are affected, the people that you have no intention are going to be affected. It's just, I love how all of this blends together. It just all comes together. And as you're saying, it isn't always the right way. It can go the other way. It can, you can fall back into the old tribe, the habit of the old tribe, the habit of everything that goes along with it. And it might not end well. It doesn't always work out. But it always works out when you understand how to use this power, where to go with it. It's just constantly collecting the tribe that fits you best and where to go get it. Your like-minded people. If somebody is, as I said, my tribe does not include negative, doubting, people that are just always complaining about everything. Mm-hmm. I have very little patience for that. It's mm-hmm. one thing that I just, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I can't do this, and I move on.
Well, and for very good reason. I know we both have similar views about this thing, because I've experienced the exact same thing in my own life. There have been people I've literally just cut off from connection simply because I knew they had that negative orientation, and I knew from experience, if I hung out around that, I was going to get more of what they were dishing out. Whether from them or from somebody else, it didn't even make any difference. Just being around that was going to have that impact. And I didn't want to have the impact. No. I didn't want that. I'd been there. I'd done that. I'd gotten the t-shirt. Why would I want to stay in that terrible place?
Well, of course. And that's the thing. When you seek your tribe, you're using the law of attraction and the concept of seeking your tribe. You're looking for the same vibration. You're looking for that, in some areas. And it's, as we said, it doesn't have to be the exact same vibration, but it just has to be similar in nature, similar mindset, similar, views on things. I don't usually talk politics. You and I occasionally will talk about general stuff. We agree on 90% of stuff, probably disagree on 10% of it. And mm-hmm. it doesn't remotely change anything. We have views. It's just, I would never lose our friendship over you being wrong on some of the things you're wrong about. So
I love the way you said that, by the way.
yeah, no problem. So I don't want to lose your friendship just because you're wrong, but you think about it, and the tribe is the point. I always point out the journey is our life, and mm-hmm. one of the integral pieces of the journey is the tribe you develop along the way. The tribe is I've never even mentally connected the two until tonight. The tribe is part of the journey. You're collecting your tribe on this journey, and some of these people are going to be on the journey for a little while. Some of them are going to be on the long haul, but you have this tribe on this journey, and it's such an amazing feeling. It really is.
In fact, you just cued something in my mind that I hadn't thought about. You can build some tribe, lose contact with tribe, and then reconnect much later, which is exactly what I experienced in the dance community, because I was absent I was absent from that dance community for over 20 years. And
Yes.
now that I'm getting back into it, most of the people who I'm meeting now are different from the ones that I knew, but I occasionally connect with somebody that I did know in the old days. And they're great conversations. Like, wow, we haven't connected in so long, and we're chatting about this. And I see this person all the time. Oh, wow, I can't remember the last time I saw that person. That reconnection that you get through that process, it's almost better than the friendships themselves.
In fact, in some ways, it has this deeper feeling on some level. An example that you cued something that happened to me. I have a very good friend that, we when we used to work together at Williamsville Wellness, we spent a lot of time together. Just really, just us as a group would go out a lot. It was always very fun. Well, my life has totally, I'm not working in that same group anymore. I have a bunch of new colleagues, and I'm way over here. So, 10 years passed by, and through no intention or fault, we just fell off. The contact fell off.
Right.
So this person was in need of, to talk, and said, hey, she said, you got a minute? And she texted me. I said, absolutely. Well, we picked up like 10 years didn't exist. It just,
wow.
there was never an intention of the tribe never ended. It didn't have to. That's how it shows how solid it was, that it was able to just, with no awkwardness, we picked right back up. And, and then it increased, and we, 6 months or so we're in contact. She sort of got her situation resolved, and not on purpose, but again, it slowly fades off again. But if we ever need, that's the beauty of it. It isn't always constantly there, but it's knowing that it exists and you can summon it at any time. That's one of the beauties of the tribe.
And I'm going to go really woo. We talked about woo-woo before. I'm going to go really woo for a moment and point out that when we do allow that dynamic process that you just described very beautifully, when we allow that to just naturally happen the way it happens, an interesting energetic flow starts to occur. This is the woo part. The energetic flow, it's almost as if having all those connections that are either active or inactive for various amounts of time, those connections, it's almost like there's an energy that flows among and between them. Yes. And through us as well. And we're part of that energy flow. And that energy flow, the more of those connections that we have, gets stronger. It gets more potent. You can feel it more. You can sense it. You gain a confidence from it. You gain a sense of purpose from it, which if you had told that to me 30, 40 years ago, I would have looked at you cross-eyed like, what the bleep are you talking about?
Yes.
But now I look at that experience, and I've been having that experience a lot, and it is remarkable how those tribal connections, as we're calling them, they all add up. It's like there's a cumulative effect to them, and it's palpable. You can feel it. You can practically taste it.
Yes. Were you going to get woo-woo, I thought, in a minute?
Well, for me, that is the woo-woo.
I'll give you a hard time. That's exactly what I believe. And so it's not, for us, it's not woo-woo at all.
No, that's true. For us, well, there are a lot of people who would say, huh? What are you talking about?
Yeah. No, but also there's some theories that, and I'm not really, there's some science backing up, not just your tribe now, generational tribes. There's memories that can be passed down, and there's instincts, and so it might even be bigger. If you want to get woo-woo, it might be way bigger than we realize.
I think it is.
It might go back generations, because and you bring that energy forward with you, and you realize that I have this image, that when you're disconnected from source, or you're disconnected from, life, and you don't feel like you belong, you're whatever you're facing, you're standing there alone. Mm-hmm. And then in today's world, if I'm standing and I'm standing up against something, or I'm having to, there's something, life is, I'm having to put effort for, all my tribe is standing right behind me, and the tribe that has transitioned are standing right behind me as well. So all of them are right behind us when you're in tune. When you're not in tune, it doesn't feel like that energy is there. And that's when you're being connected. Does that make sense?
It not only does it make sense, I had a really kind of amusing image come into my mind. I don't know if you ever watched all the Star Wars movies. I end up watching all of them. And the
Yeah.
last one, they have the final scene between, on the one hand, the Jedi, and on the other hand, I can't remember what the bad guys are called, but the two energies basically being represented by two individuals.
Yes.
And the Sith, that's the other one. So the bad guy, the reincarnated, Palpatine says, the scavenger girl, she's nothing. I am all the Sith. And the scavenger girl says, and I am all the Jedi. And there's like this boom, this explosion of power, as the two forces collide. What a great metaphor for what happens when you have that tribe behind you. Because that was actually, that was part of that storyline for Rey, the lead character in that movie. She was trying to connect energetically to the Jedi, and she couldn't seem to make the connection. It was driving her crazy. It was making her feel lack of confidence. And then, of course, at the very moment when she needs to have it, that's when she makes all the connection and everything just comes together for her.
Yes.
But it's a beautiful metaphor, but it's true. It's a true metaphor.
Yeah. Yes. And that's the thing. So when I'm totally tuned into my source, I'm in the right path. It isn't just my energy, as we're saying, that I'm bringing it. It's all the energy of everyone that's in my tribe, everybody that has left to transition to the other side of the tribe, to the other world that were in my tribe before. I have a vision of thousands of people in my tribe standing right with me, and that energy is flowing through me. Law of attraction allows that energy connection to take place. Being disconnected from your source is when you feel, to me, that would be the definition of depression, is when you're disconnected from that energy. That's when people feel they're depressed, I believe you've disconnected from that energy, and your tribe is a big part of that energy.
Great point. That is a great definition for the word depression. There are a lot of ways that we've tried to discuss it over the years, but really it's disconnection, not just from source, but from your tribe.
Yes. And I always do the disclaimer because I don't want to trigger anyone. Depression is real. It can be chemically a cause as well. So I'm not suggesting that all depression is based on disconnection. I'm just saying it is a cause of depression for some people. When you're disconnected, it doesn't necessarily, but I have never, to be fair, I've never met anybody who was depressed that felt they were connected.
Yeah. Well, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because when you're feeling depressed, you do feel disconnected. You do feel like you're all alone in the world and the world is against you. Yeah.
I don't ever feel alone. And that energy, I can feel that energy, and it's there. I very seldom, I don't get low anymore, but if there is a moment of negativity or there's something that, a couple of Saturdays ago, I had food poisoning.
Oof.
So for about 3 hours, I felt pretty disconnected for different reasons. And I was just saying, oh my, I've caught myself going, I never get sick. So I have this food poisoning and I'm waiting for the event, once my body decides to, the purge, but it really was saying, you're going to enjoy the feeling before we purge. Just hang on. So you can't leave the house. You can't go to bed. So you just have to sit there going, fire away when ready. But there's a moment where when it feels really bad, you're sweaty and it's gross and all that. And, I was sweating and I was like, for a moment, I was like, oh my God, why am I going through this? And I laugh at that. It's like immediately my energy wouldn't let me say, look, you ate some bad food. Let's not overreact. You ate some don't worry. It's going to be in about an hour later. It was not good, but it was gone.
Yeah. You're past the worst part and improving.
Yeah. Improving. And, but I just found that energy amazing that, even when I can have that moment, it's like, and I believe that's the energy of my tribe, and maybe it's the tribe that has transitioned, but it's almost like it won't let me go too low, even when something like that. It's just like, you're overreacting. You're about to throw up and poop. That's all that's about to happen. That's it.
Yeah. Well, that energy, that tribal connection, that familial connection, generational connection, I think it's probably one of the best explanations that I've ever heard for why it is that each generation seems to know more than the previous one.
Yes.
Because I always worried about how does that happen? You know,
Yes.
like what was it? I think it was the millennial generation when they were coming in, and everybody was marveling at how they could just learn computers through their fingertips. They could just sit
Yes.
down and just start using it. And, adults to that point, it was a real tough thing for most people to do.
Sure.
And here the kids were just kind of doing it. Well, how did they do it? And to a certain extent, they did it by teaching each other. But I think there was a piece of it where they were just drawing from the global connection, so to speak, from
Yes.
the racial connection, if you will.
I have literally seen a 3-year-old pick up a tablet, the very first tablet, just start using a tablet. Bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
Just start using a tablet, pretty well.
Yeah.
It's like, that come from?
It's one of those amazing things that when you see it happen, you say, how did that happen? And yet it's just happening. It's right in front of you, and you marvel at it, and you recognize it's bigger than anything that you ever knew before. So it's pretty cool stuff.
Well, when a newborn baby is born, and it's automatically drawn to the mother and the connection and the feeding, and the mom's energy's connected. This is it's instinctive. When a baby elephant's born and starts walking right away, it's like, well, what was going on inside there where they learned to do that? I mean, it's just there wasn't any walking going on inside the mom, and also plopped up and starts walking. So, it's pre-programmed, it's generational, it's just automatic, instinctive. I saw a puppy the other day, and there was a snake and the puppy never had seen a snake before. And instinctively jumped away from the snake. This puppy is not jumping away from anything, but instinctively backed away from that snake. How did that puppy know the snake was dangerous?
Yeah.
I mean, that was something had to tell that puppy that snake was dangerous. And he didn't have to learn by getting bit. There was nothing. Trust me, nothing else was dangerous to the puppy because he was all over the place. But that snake was dangerous.
Well, and science has long taken the position of it being an instinct, something built into the animal. And interestingly enough, science never does a whole lot in terms of saying that humans are instinctual. Lately, the science has gotten a little bit more in that direction. But I think that's really science's way of trying to say there is a large connection. There's a large database, so to speak, that's being drawn upon. But there are a lot of scientists who would probably resist that idea, but I think that's ultimately what it adds up to.
I agree.
And it explains an awful lot. It explains so many things. I mean, more than we can talk about in 3 minutes, but it explains a whole lot about stuff that goes on in human life that is otherwise incomprehensible.
Yes. Well, it goes so deep, and that's the thing where, stuff is handed down, and some of it is, you call it instinct, but that instinct was developed and handed down. It's preloaded. It's like when you buy a computer with the preloaded stuff already on it. There's certain things, the brain, as you're forming in the body, the mom's heartbeat is beating for the baby, right? The heart's developing. So the moment that the disconnection is made, that heart is now having to work on its own. Right. It isn't like somebody has to say, okay, now baby, start beating your own heart, start digesting your own food, start breathing your own air. It happens. It's just built in the programming. And it happens the same way every time. And, and a beautiful baby, which is not true. They're not beautiful. They're really ugly when they're born. Don't buy that. They're not beautiful. They're really not. So that is.
I'll just say that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And I think
that reinforces that program, because that mom really looks at that wad of goo and thinks that's pretty. It's not.
Oh, perspective, thou art a wonderful God.
well, and if there are any complaints, please send your complaints to Walt at LOA Today.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yes, I'll make sure Joel gets them.
But it, all kidding aside, this is a great topic, and I think tribal connection and the law of attraction have stuff connected that I've never really thought about until this topic tonight.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you brought it up because it made me think, and I like to think of things differently. And it's the tribe and your journey have a connection that I never really put together before this evening. So I appreciate the topic.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, actually, one of the things that made me think about it, and I'll use this as the wrap up, is I have for a number of years now been advocating the idea that if you want to be successful with whatever it is you're trying to be successful in your life, you really need two things. You need to have some self-confidence and you need to have some social connections. Tribe is social connection. That's really what tribe is all about, so it's one half of that equation. So when I thought of it, I said, well, it makes perfect sense. You've got to have tribe if you want to succeed with whatever it is you're trying to succeed with.
The number one thing when I have people, when I'm doing traditional life coaching, people looking for jobs, everybody you meet is your network. And the most efficient way to get a job is to have a big network and let the network know you're looking for work.
Oh, instantaneous.
Far greater than any job search you can do. So your network is very valuable. Network is another connection concept. Networks can be part of your tribe. Your tribe is safety. It goes way back. Your tribe represented safety, and being able to move from one tribe to another go to a tribe that is more safe or matches your goals better. There's nothing wrong with that. The lost in our topic, and we touched on it briefly, but leaving unhealthy tribes is a good thing. It's not always possible, but whenever possible, if you can leave a tribe that you know is not good for you, leave the tribe. But don't just sit there, isolate. Find your new tribe.
Yeah, that's a great way to wrap it up. Thank you for bringing that in because that really, I think, is the best message we can leave people with. So, yeah, good stuff, Joel. As usual, we went down a rabbit hole and we found a rabbit. This is really good. I like this.
Yeah, I loved it. Thank you. I had no idea what the topic was until about 1 minute before the show. So I love that.
Well, that's par for the course with us, though. I mean, that's really what we
absolutely.
do.
Yes.
So thank you very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.